So if you've been paying any attention to New Jersey as of late, particularly over like the last 2 weeks or so, you might have seen a lot of news about drone sightings and noticing like swarms of drones going around New Jersey at night. And I kind of want to unpack what's happening, what we know, and what it most likely actually is. Let me say first and foremost, it is not aliens. It is never aliens. Everyone always thinks if there's something moving in the sky that you can't understand, it's aliens. It has never been aliens, and this, I'm 99.9% certain that this is not aliens. Now that I've taken the most fun possibility off the table, I'm going to look at the next possibility, which people have talked about, which it definitely is not. And that is the idea that this is a foreign incursion, that somehow the Chinese, the Russians, or, God forbid, the Canadians are sending an army of drones into the United States, specifically into New Jersey, to spy on people. Now, a big reason that a lot of people lent into the idea of, oh, what if this is a foreign intervention, was that a New Jersey congressman falsely claimed that an Iranian ship with drone deploying capabilities had left Iranian waters and was out somewhere in the world, and that it was possible that it had somehow found its way into the Atlantic and was deploying drones, with no real evidence for that claim at all. Now, that Iranian ship had left its port, but the notion that it came to the Atlantic was not noticed by the United States or by anybody, and was close enough to the shore of the United States that drones could fly in, observe things, and then fly back without detection, is completely ludicrous, and it was pretty much debunked immediately when they found that ship not within 1,000 kilometers of the United States. It had just been moved between ports around Iran. And another easy way to come to the conclusion that these are not foreign drones coming into the country and spying on Americans is the fact that they're still around. If the United States was aware of Chinese, Russian, Iranian, or some oppositional state sending drones into the United States airspace to look at Americans and gather information, they would not last as long as they have just in the sky. We all remember that Chinese weather balloon that drifted into US airspace that was promptly shot down pretty much as soon as it crossed over the border into Montana. The United States is a institution that is capable of bad things. It's capable of incompetency and not doing things in the correct manner or acting too slow, but it tends to react pretty severely if it's going to be embarrassed on the international stage. So the idea that the US would just be like, what are we going to do? Chinese drones in the sky, it is ridiculous. And if this was some foreign invasion, the United States would have dealt with it a lot sooner than it has, or hasn't. So we got those immediately dismissible, implausible ones out of the way, and we get into the more likely possibilities. The first of which being, is this the United States testing drones for warfare or espionage in the future with some new sort of design that it wants to roll out? This certainly would not be the first time the US military has done something like this. If you don't recall, I believe it was in 2015, where the United States Army, during like trial runs and training exercises, basically dropped bombs on abandoned portions of Flint, Michigan, and was doing training exercises there with gunfire, helicopters overhead, and they just didn't tell anyone, causing a small panic throughout the city of Michigan, where they imagined that, oh, we're being invaded, or there's a battle going on. So the United States military has a history of doing experimentation training and keeping the public in the dark and causing widespread panic. And that, of course, would explain why it seems that federal agencies have been sort of wishy-washy and trying to like not draw too much attention to this situation, especially if it's their own material that they're testing and they do not want eyes on it. And look, the federal government itself is the sole body responsible for dealing with hostile aircraft. Most police, at least my understanding is that most state and local police forces don't have the authority to shoot down aircraft of any real capacity. That's mainly the responsibility of the federal government, which might explain why so little effort is seemingly being taken to stop these drones. Hypothetically, it's because the federal government itself is the one overlooking them activating them, controlling them, whatever it were, in some exercise, so it's not allowing any action to be taken to shoot them down. Now we get on to the final possibility, the most boring one, and the one that I think is the most likely looking at this, and that is the fact that there is no drone crisis, and this is just an episode of mass hysteria. Let's assume that there is no drone crisis. How could it escalate to this extent? Well, I'm just going to say this is just a hypothetical timeline of events. Let's assume that there are some guys, some collection of drone enthusiasts, maybe 2 weeks ago, who are like, we're going to go and we're going to fly them all out at one night, and we will see how that goes. And somebody sees that and says, oh, I saw a lot of drones last night. Did you guys see anything? And then people go out. And this is what allegedly has been happening. A lot of people, particularly in law enforcement, have said that a lot of people are just reporting planes or helicopters as if they are drone sightings. So what you have is people that aren't normally going out and specifically looking for things in the sky, going out, looking around and filming, and not being able to tell apart planes, helicopters, and this army of drones that is allegedly coming their way. And this seems to be what the federal government has claimed is actually happening. Essentially, this cyclical nature to the whole thing of people, someone sees a collection of drones, says, I saw drones. People start misidentifying everything they see in the night sky as drones, which makes discussion of drones go up, which makes more hobbyists and just like casual drone users want to fly their things around more, which leads to more genuine sightings, which leads to more panic about the idea of drones in the sky. And you see, it just progressively gets worse and worse and worse. If people are going out at night specifically looking for drones in the sky to, whether subconsciously or not, reinforce their beliefs about some mass drone invasion, they are going to misidentify everything that they can't clearly identify as a drone. I think this all comes down to sort of like an Occam's razor, like which interpretation requires the least guesswork and makes the most sense. Of course, the most outlandish, aliens, foreign invasion, throw those possibilities out the window. I think it comes down to which one of these two you think is more likely. One, people who can't tell the difference between a drone and an aeroplane are getting a little bit hysterical trying to identify those things at night and making mistakes. Or is the government testing something and trying to keep that secret from people? I think both are likely, but in this current internet age of sensational social media where anything can be blown out of proportion, I'm leaning towards the idea that people want a story to be there, and their misinterpretation of the facts and the current situation at hand is blowing just about every single thing out of proportion.